Most people believe confidence must be loud. They think it means strong opinions and fast reactions. They associate it with dominance that is clearly visible. But true confidence works in the opposite direction. The strongest individuals are rarely reactive. They do not rush to respond. They are not shaken by insults. They are not pressured by opinions. Chaos does not pull them off balance. Instead, they move slowly. They respond only when necessary. Because of this, they remain in control. This audiobook is a journey into becoming unmoved, not cold, not emotionless. It is about becoming deeply grounded within yourself, so grounded that the outside world loses its power. When you react impulsively, you give away control. When you explain yourself unnecessarily, you lose authority. If your mood depends on another person, your confidence no longer belongs to you. Unshakable confidence is not built to impress others. It is built through silence, through restraint, through emotional discipline. You will learn to stay calm when others lose control. You will stop absorbing negativity. You will release the need for validation. You will develop a quiet confidence that commands respect. This journey is not about winning arguments, it is about winning yourself. By the end, you will understand something important. The most powerful response is often no response at all. Remaining unmoved changes everything, including how the world treats you. Chapter 1: Why reaction is the real weakness. Many people believe reacting quickly and forcefully makes them appear strong, but this belief is one of the most common misunderstandings about confidence. They assume that answering back immediately, defending with intensity, and displaying strong emotion proves authority and self-assurance. In reality, an uncontrolled reaction is one of the clearest signs of inner weakness and emotional instability. Every time you react emotionally, you reveal that something outside of you has gained control over your internal state. A careless comment, a sharp look, or a stressful situation can reach in and pull your emotional strings if you allow it. The person who remains composed will always hold more power than the one who reacts impulsively. Imagine a busy office meeting where a colleague openly criticizes your idea in front of others. One person reacts instantly by raising their voice and aggressively defending their position. Another person pauses, listens carefully, and responds calmly or chooses silence. When these two reactions are compared, the composed individual almost always appears more confident and authoritative. This impression exists not because their idea was better, but because they remained unmoved by the challenge. Reaction creates a false sense of urgency, and urgency causes a loss of control. Manipulative individuals understand this dynamic and intentionally provoke emotional responses. Once emotions are heightened, predictability increases and clear thinking begins to fade. Anger narrows perspective, while defensiveness weakens presence and credibility. This pattern is visible daily in online arguments where one person types increasingly long replies while the other stops responding. The conflict ends not through resolution, but because one person refuses to continue feeding energy into it. Choosing to remain unmoved does not mean accepting disrespect, but exercising control over how and when you respond. A parent who stays calm during a child's public tantrum regains authority faster than one who reacts with anger. Similarly, a leader who pauses before speaking in a crisis earns trust more quickly than one who visibly panics. True confidence feels no urgency to prove itself or demand validation. Most impulsive reactions are driven by fear, especially the fear of silence or appearing weak. Silence, however, is a powerful expression of confidence that requires no outside approval. When you stop reacting automatically, mental clarity increases and objectivity returns. At the same time, power quietly shifts away from those attempting to provoke you. Their influence disappears the moment they fail to extract the reaction they expected. You also strengthen self-respect by proving that your emotional state belongs only to you. Life will continuously test this discipline through difficult people and challenging situations. Yet the choice always remains yours, whether these external events are allowed to move you. The goal is not to become cold or detached, but to become deeply centered and grounded. When non-reaction becomes natural, others begin to sense your stability without explanation. You appear unshakable, calm, and controlled without forcing any impression. This quiet control forms the foundation of truly unbreakable confidence. Before we continue, take a brief moment to support this channel. If this chapter helped you see confidence in a new way, consider liking this video so more people can discover it. Sharing this audiobook allows this message to reach someone who may need it right now. Subscribing ensures you do not miss future videos on self-mastery, emotional control, and quiet strength. Your support helps this series continue and grow without distraction. Now, when you are ready, let us move forward into the next chapter. Chapter 2. Emotional control is the new power. Many people believe real power comes from controlling situations and people. But the greatest and most lasting power comes from complete control over yourself. Emotional control does not mean feeling nothing, but ensuring that temporary emotions no longer dictate permanent actions. In everyday life, the person who explodes in traffic may feel powerful for a moment, yet soon feels drained and diminished. The driver who remains calm arrives with their inner peace fully intact. True confidence expands naturally when your emotional state stays stable, regardless of external pressure. Consider two employees receiving harsh feedback from a manager. One becomes defensive, interrupts repeatedly, and rushes to justify every criticism. The other listens quietly, asks one thoughtful question, and calmly states they will work on the issue. With time, it becomes clear which employee earns greater trust and respect. Emotional control signals maturity, competence, and a deep belief in oneself. When emotions control your reactions, your behavior becomes predictable. When you control your emotions, you become unreadable. Unreadable people are difficult to manipulate. This calmness often unsettles aggressive individuals who expect resistance or submission. When neither appears, they lose psychological balance. Emotional mastery begins with a deliberate pause. That pause may last 1 second or 10, but it creates space between feeling and action. In that space, you build a barrier that protects your control. Imagine a heated argument with a family member who says something deeply hurtful. Your instinct is to strike back, but the pause gives your mind time to observe the emotion instead of obeying it. You acknowledge the anger or frustration without allowing it to define you. By naming the emotion internally, you prevent it from taking control. Consider receiving a stressful message that triggers anxiety. Instead of replying instantly, you step away for 10 minutes. When you return, your response is shorter, clearer, and calmer. This is emotional discipline in real life. Unfiltered emotion often leads to regret. Managed emotion leads directly to confidence. People with emotional control do not need to raise their voices to be heard. They do not rush to explain themselves to those determined to misunderstand them. They refuse to let temporary emotions cause permanent damage. This transformation does not happen overnight. It is trained through repeated, intentional choices. You choose not to reply immediately. You choose not to argue every point. You choose not to take everything personally. Over time, this discipline rewires how your brain processes pressure. In crises, tense meetings, and conflicts, people gravitate toward the calmest person present. They do not seek the loudest voice. They seek stability. Calm individuals become anchors for others. Their steadiness stabilizes entire rooms. This is why emotional control is the new form of power. When your inner world becomes steady, your outer confidence becomes undeniable. Chapter 3. Freedom from approval builds real confidence. The desperate need for approval from others is one of the most silent yet destructive killers of confidence. Often hiding behind excessive politeness, chronic overthinking, and a constant desire to be liked. Most people move through life unaware of how much their daily behavior is shaped by a deep fear of disapproval, carefully choosing every word, avoiding honest opinions, and suppressing their true thoughts. They say yes when they want to say no, not because they agree, but because they fear rejection. Even though safety built on shifting opinions is fragile and unstable, imagine someone receiving an email and spending 10 minutes rewriting a single paragraph, deleting good sentences, softening language, and adding unnecessary explanations purely to feel accepted. Now compare this to someone who responds clearly and respectfully without over-explaining, whose calm tone and quiet confidence are immediately felt. It becomes obvious which person carries greater presence. Because approval-seeking leaks insecurity, while self-validation projects stability. Letting go of approval does not mean becoming rude or emotionally distant, but freeing your self-worth from the condition of being liked. In group discussions, one person waits nervously for reactions and bends their opinions to fit the room, while another speaks thoughtfully even when their view differs. The second person does not need to be louder, because they remain grounded in their truth. Confidence grows the moment you stop negotiating your worth with others. Approval seeking is always rooted in fear, including the fear of misunderstanding, standing alone, and facing rejection. Rejection, however, is not failure, but information. When you detach your identity from approval, a shift occurs where you speak less, but with greater clarity, move with intention instead of anxiety, and begin to respect yourself. Others sense this shift immediately. Think of someone who never over-explains themselves, remains calm, and does not seek to be fully understood, yet carries a solid presence. Dependence on approval keeps people emotionally reactive, where small criticism feels like attack and neutral comments feel like judgment. The moment you stop needing validation, these triggers lose their power. Freedom begins when you choose to approve of yourself first, by pausing before seeking agreement and asking whether you respect your own decision. When the answer is yes, external approval becomes optional rather than necessary. In professional life, emotionally independent people are trusted with more responsibility. And in personal relationships, they earn deeper respect. This growth is not about becoming distant, but about becoming secure within your own mind. When you stop chasing approval, you stop shrinking yourself. And when you stop shrinking, confidence takes root. You do not need permission to exist confidently. You only need to stop asking for it. Chapter 4. Silence is a form of strength. Silence makes many people deeply uncomfortable, which is why they rush to fill quiet moments with extra words, explanations, or nervous laughter. What most fail to realize is that intentional silence is one of the strongest physical expressions of confidence. Choosing silence does not signal weakness or a lack of answers, but shows that you are no longer dependent on constant noise to feel secure. In intense conversations, the person who speaks less often usually holds the real power, not through dominance, but through selectivity. Because their words are chosen carefully, they carry more weight. Imagine a high-stakes negotiation or tense performance review where one person keeps talking, over-explaining mistakes, and adding irrelevant details to avoid silence. The other listens, allows a long pause, and then delivers a brief, targeted response. It quickly becomes obvious who controls the direction of the interaction. The person comfortable with silence lets it do the heavy lifting. Deliberate silence creates space, and that space builds psychological pressure that exposes hidden intentions and insecurities. Silence also protects your personal energy, because every unnecessary word drains focus and weakens emotional control. Not every thought requires expression, and not every challenge deserves engagement. Confident people understand this intuitively and do not rush to explain themselves to those who have already decided what they believe. They refuse to argue over every misunderstanding and remain at peace with others, thinking whatever they choose. This restraint requires an inner center that cannot be shaken. An unshakable person is not someone who avoids difficulty, but someone who remains steady while facing it. This steadiness comes from a psychological anchor that does not move with changing circumstances. Without this center, confidence rises and crashes with moods, outcomes, and external feedback. With it, confidence becomes stable and lasting. Consider two professionals experiencing the same major failure. One spirals into self-doubt, loses motivation, and complains endlessly about unfairness. The other feels the disappointment, stays quiet, accepts reality, and continues forward without needing to explain. The difference between them is not talent, but inner stability. This stability forms when your sense of self is no longer tied to external outcomes. When you trust your ability to handle whatever arises, uncertainty loses its power to paralyze you. You no longer need to speak to prove your worth, because your presence does it for you. This quiet authority is more intimidating to adversaries and more comforting to allies than endless words. By choosing silence, you show comfort with yourself and signal that you do not need noise to feel important. This quiet discipline is what separates leaders from followers. Chapter 5. Building an inner center that cannot be shaken. Modern society often mistakes leadership for loudness or aggressive control. Yet people instinctively follow the person who remains steady when everything around them becomes uncertain. In a reactive, high-stress world, genuine calm stands out as a clear signal of authority, especially when pressure causes most people to rush, speak too fast, make emotional decisions, and search for someone else to carry responsibility. Without any formal title, the calmest person in the room naturally becomes the point of stability, because clear and unhurried thinking creates clarity, and clarity builds trust. Living unmoved does not mean withdrawing from life or shutting down emotion, but remaining internally steady while staying fully engaged with the world. You can care deeply about people and outcomes without being consumed by them, and pursue your passions without losing your sense of self. This balance is the essence of mature, unshakable confidence. Over time, stressful situations stop feeling overwhelming and instead feel manageable. A misunderstanding with a loved one no longer becomes a battle to be right, but an opportunity to listen, consider their perspective, and respond thoughtfully, or wait until emotions settle. By doing this, you protect your peace without sacrificing connection. As a result, you begin to attract people who respect boundaries and naturally repel those who thrive on drama and reaction. Others sense that manipulation does not work on you, and your interactions become more honest and far less exhausting. This way of living invites calm authority into every area of life and reflects the discipline of responding intentionally rather than reacting impulsively. Unshakable confidence is not loud or attention-seeking, but steady, quiet, and deeply grounded, earning respect without asking for it. When you commit to living unmoved, you stop giving your power away and become difficult to disturb while remaining easy to trust. This discipline is not about perfection, but consistent awareness, and not about controlling others, but mastering yourself. When this way of living becomes fully integrated, a powerful truth emerges. The external world never held as much power over you as you believed, because that power was always within you. The noise of the world may continue, but it no longer finds a place inside you. You become the master of your inner landscape. By remaining centered, you do more than survive chaos, you rise above it. This stillness, focus, and discipline form the foundation of true strength and unbreakable confidence. Chapter 6. Handling disrespect without losing power. Disrespect triggers emotion faster than almost anything else, because dismissive tones, sarcasm, or public insults feel like direct threats to identity. Most people react instantly, yet emotional reactions often give disrespect more power than it deserves. True confidence is not shown by speed of response, but by the ability to remain in control. Consider someone repeatedly interrupting you during a conversation. One person snaps back and raises their voice, while another pauses, lets the interruption finish, and calmly asks to complete their point. The second response feels stronger, not because it is aggressive, but because it is composed. Disrespect seeks emotional energy, and when it receives none, it weakens. Handling disrespect does not mean ignoring everything, but choosing the minimum response needed to maintain self-respect. If a colleague makes a sarcastic remark about your work, a neutral statement like, "I'm comfortable with the results," carries far more power than emotional defense. There is no explanation, no justification, only calm certainty, and the shift in power is immediate. Many people confuse restraint with weakness, even though restraint is controlled strength. A calm security professional commands authority through presence, while an angry one creates chaos. Disrespect often reveals insecurity in the person delivering it, because confident individuals do not need to provoke or belittle others. When you remain calm, this imbalance becomes visible. A passive-aggressive message escalates when met with reaction, but dissolves when met with a delayed, neutral response. Time acts as a powerful filter, because most disrespect loses relevance when it is not answered immediately. This approach requires selectivity. Ask yourself whether the situation deserves your energy, whether responding will improve anything, and whether your impulse comes from emotion or clarity. Often, the strongest move is not engagement at all. When a response is necessary, keep it short, grounded, and free of emotional language or explanation. Confidence does not require defense. Over time, people learn that you are not easily provoked or emotionally accessible to disrespect. This naturally reduces future challenges. Each moment of composure reinforces your inner center and removes the urge to prove yourself. This is how confidence becomes durable, not by winning every exchange, but by refusing to lose yourself in them. Chapter 7. Confidence is felt before it is spoken. Long before you speak, people have already formed an impression of you. Because humans instinctively scan for safety, confidence, and social hierarchy within seconds. We notice how someone occupies space, how they move, and whether their body carries tension or ease. Many people try to sound confident through words and tone, yet their body often communicates anxiety, urgency, and a need for approval. In a high-stakes corporate setting, Two professionals may present the same information, but the way they enter the room changes everything. One rushes in, scans faces with a nervous smile, adjusts their clothing, and checks their phone to escape the silence. Despite their expertise, they appear small. The other enters at a steady pace, with relaxed shoulders, forward gaze, and unhurried movement. They are not trying to dominate the room, but are comfortable occupying it. Before they say a word, authority is already granted. This is the quiet power of presence. The same principle appears in waiting rooms before interviews or first meetings. An anxious person fills silence with movement, fidgeting, checking the time, and nodding excessively. A confident person is at ease in stillness. Stillness signals safety and self-trust to the subconscious mind of others. When you sit without distraction and move without urgency, you project inner control that words cannot replace. Eye contact is another powerful silent signal that is often misunderstood. Forced or intense eye contact usually reflects insecurity or dominance seeking. True confidence shows up as relaxed, natural, and balanced eye contact. When faced with a difficult question, a reactive person rushes to answer. Fearing silence, a confident person maintains eye contact, pauses, breathes, and then responds. That pause signals thoughtfulness, not weakness. Effective leaders move in this same way. They do not rush or fidget, because minimal movement increases authority. Fast, jerky motion creates anxiety in others through mirroring. Slower, deliberate movement creates calm. When you slow your body, your mind follows, your heart rate settles, posture aligns, and emotional stability increases. Your presence becomes an anchor for the room. This is not about performing confidence or playing a role. It is about removing physical habits created by hidden anxiety. Before entering a room, dropping your shoulders and slowing your breath changes your chemistry and your impact. You do not need noise to demand attention. When your presence is grounded, people naturally listen. You are no longer acting confident. You are embodying it. Chapter 8. Mental independence is true freedom. Mental independence begins the moment you stop allowing the external world to control your internal state. Many people believe freedom comes from external achievements like money, travel, or popularity. But true freedom is internal. If a careless comment ruins your mood or an unanswered message triggers anxiety, you are not free. You are emotionally dependent on the behavior of others. Mental independence is the ability to remain steady regardless of external chaos. Consider a common digital situation where you send a message, see it read, and receive no reply for hours. A reactive mind immediately creates stories, questioning self-worth and imagining rejection. This suffering is based entirely on assumption. A mentally independent person notices the delay and continues their day. They do not fill silence with speculation or guess intentions. They focus on facts, not feelings, asking what is actually known. This independence changes how you process criticism and comparison. A reactive mind turns feedback into a judgment of identity. An independent mind sees feedback as information and decides whether it is useful. When others succeed, the mentally independent person feels no threat. They understand that someone else's progress does not diminish their own value. Freedom grows where comparison ends. In relationships and professional settings, this mindset turns you from a seeker of reassurance into a stable presence. Because you no longer chase validation, you stop placing emotional pressure on others. You become difficult to manipulate because guilt, passive aggression, and exclusion lose their power. You learn to observe emotions without being ruled by them. You ask whether a reaction is necessary and whether the situation deserves your energy. Developing this inner authority is a daily practice of awareness and self-observation. It requires reclaiming power that was unknowingly given to external opinions and moods. With mental independence comes clarity. You realize nothing external ever held as much power as you believed. You are no longer a victim of your environment. You are the master of your inner landscape. This is true confidence, the freedom to be yourself. Unmoved by a reactive world. Chapter 9. Calm becomes leadership in a reactive world. Leadership is widely misunderstood and often confused with loud voices, constant direction, or aggressive control, when in reality, true leadership emerges quietly in moments of uncertainty. In a hyper-reactive, high-stress world, calmness stands out as a rare and powerful signal of authority, especially when pressure causes most people to rush, speak faster, make fear-driven decisions, and search for someone else to carry responsibility. In a corporate crisis, such as a system failure or missed deadline, one person may panic, assign blame, and spread anxiety, while another quietly assesses the situation, asks clear questions, and proposes logical next steps. Without demanding attention or holding a formal title, this second person naturally becomes the leader of the moment. Calm thinking creates clarity, and clarity becomes the foundation upon which trust is built. People do not want to be guided by someone who is easily shaken. They want to feel safe in the presence of steadiness. This same dynamic appears in families and social settings, where conflicts escalate because emotions spread quickly and raised voices trigger louder responses. When one person consciously chooses calm, the emotional chain reaction breaks and their composure becomes a psychological anchor for the entire room. Calm leadership does not demand attention, it attracts it. Because people listen more closely when words feel intentional rather than reactive. Calm leaders also make better decisions, because they are not rushed by false urgency or clouded by temporary emotion. They take the time to evaluate situations even when others push for immediate answers. Instead of spreading anxiety, they absorb pressure and return clarity to the environment, understanding that their emotional state influences everyone around them. They take responsibility for that influence. Calm leadership is not a rare gift reserved for a few, but a discipline available to anyone willing to practice it. It is developed by listening fully, responding without escalation, and maintaining your center during uncertainty. Over time, people begin to seek your presence in stressful moments, not because you dominate them, but because you stabilize them. In a world addicted to instant reaction, restraint becomes your greatest asset. This is the quiet advantage of being unmoved. When you cannot be shaken, you become the one others choose to follow. Chapter 10. Living unmoved without becoming distant. A common fear about emotional mastery is that becoming unmoved will make you cold or detached. But true emotional stability does the opposite by allowing you to stay fully engaged while remaining internally steady. Being unmoved does not mean shutting down your ability to feel, but freeing yourself from reactive loops so you finally have the mental space to connect deeply with others. Consider a parent responding to a child's frustration, where a reactive response absorbs the chaos and creates conflict, while a calm, unmoved response listens without becoming shaken and provides a grounded presence. Because the parent is not overwhelmed by the outburst, the child feels understood and safe, which reflects mature confidence that cares deeply without being controlled by intensity or outcome. In personal relationships, this stability creates real security, because when you stop demanding reassurance or reacting to every misunderstanding, tension dissolves and intimacy grows. You address issues calmly and directly since your self-worth is no longer at stake in every conversation. You begin responding more slowly but with greater impact, and your confidence no longer needs to be displayed because it is felt. Living unmoved also changes how you experience challenges. As situations that once felt overwhelming begin to look like solvable puzzles, you approach problems with curiosity instead of fear, leading to clearer thinking and better decisions. Difficulty does not disappear, but unnecessary suffering does. As these principles integrate, your social circle naturally refines itself, attracting those who respect boundaries and distancing those who thrive on drama and manipulation. People sense that emotional games no longer work on you, making interactions more honest and far less exhausting. This journey is not about perfection, but about consistent self-awareness and intentional response rather than impulsive reaction. Unshakable confidence is quiet and steady, never begging for attention, yet earning deep respect. When you live unmoved, you stop giving your power away and realize a simple truth. Nothing external ever had the power you believed it did. That power was always yours. If this audiobook helped you feel calmer, clearer, or more grounded, take a moment to support the channel by liking the video so it can reach others who may need this message. Subscribe for more audiobooks on confidence, discipline, and inner strength. And leave a comment with the word unmoved as a reminder of the mindset you are building. Thank you for listening.